It's finally here. This is the update we've all been waiting for. This is the new Tesla Model 3 Highland, and this here is the entry-level model. This is the base model, but this is the single-motor rear-wheel drive standard Model 3 Highland. But let me give you a hint of what I think. I think this updated Model 3 is one of the best electric cars you can buy for the money. Let me explain why. Now, before I get started, make sure you go to productreview.com.au because there you're able to read owners' reviews of people who bought and lived with cars like the Tesla Model 3, and you can even review your own car there, leave a rating, and go there and check out other cars that you might be interested in buying and seeing what other people think of it. Now, what's changed with the new Model 3 in this Highland update? Well, first of all, there's been no massive mechanical updates to the battery or motors, so underneath it's relatively the same car compared to the previous generation. But what is obvious is that there's a bunch of new sheet metal, except for the doors and rear fenders. Everything is new to this car. And basically the focus of all new sheet metal was to make this car more aerodynamic, because the more aerodynamic your electric car is, the more range you'll hopefully get out of it. Now, of course, we'll get a new headlight design, which is the new front face of the Tesla Model 3 Highland, and you're going to instantly be able to tell this is the new Model 3 instead of the old one. There's going to be really no mistaking it from the front. In terms of your cooling, there's only one big access down here at the front, so it should make it easier if you want to buy a car cover for this. Now, what else has been changed is the rake here on the hood. It's meant to be a bit more aerodynamic and prevent a bit of wind noise, which is better if you're considering buying this over a previous generation Model 3. Now you're getting new 18-inch wheel designs with this new aero cover, and you have alloy wheels underneath, and they're wrapped in a Michelin tire. And personally, these look way better than the previous generation base aero covers because they're all black now, and that looks way better. Now, as you can see here, there's cameras here at the front and here in the B pillar and all around the car, because this car solely relies on these cameras for its safety systems and parking sensors, because it doesn't have any ultrasonic sensors anymore, which I think is a bit of a downgrade because they've worked well on other Tesla cars that I've tested, so I'm not too sure why they had to go away with them and just rely on these cameras, but for now these have worked relatively well. Now, your motor is between the rear wheels here because this is rear wheel drive. You still get a glass roof, but you get new taillights, which I really like the look of, and you get Tesla spells across the back, which some people might like or not like. You still get a powered boot here, but this is like a trunk type opening instead of a hatch, so if you want more space to put things in and out of this car, you're better off going with the Model Y. And you have a slightly different design here for the rear bumper. Now, this paint here is going to be a $1,500 option if you like blue, but if you want the new red color, which is this fantastic, really striking red, it looks really nice, that's going to cost you $2,600 extra, and the new stealth gray is going to cost you $2,300. So it depends how much you like that color, because you will have to pay for it. But if you want a different color from black or white, the blue is going to be the best value because it's going to be the most affordable out of those color options. Now, immediately when you open these doors, they feel heavier and close with a nicer, sort of more solid sound. So build quality already feels way better here in the Model 3. Now, I have decent amounts of feet room, although they're a bit jammed underneath the seat in front of me, and my knee room's a little bit limited because this seat is pushed back a bit for my driving position, so the back seats aren't the most spacious compared to something like a Model Y. And then my head's close to the ceiling here, but it's not too bad as a 5'11" adult, but taller adults might feel a little bit cramped back here. But what's massively improved is that the bench seat here has been raised up, so it means that you have less air between your knees and the seat, which is a good thing for long-term comfort. Now, what's cool is that you can fold down this middle seat here. It has cup holders and it's going to be comfortable for long trips, and it's nicely padded as well. We have some hard nap pockets in front of us, which aren't really too useful because they've got this really hard shell on them, so you're really just going to jam in maybe some papers or any sort of charging cables. You have two USB charging cables here in the form of USB-C, and these things can put out to 65 watts, each one of these. So it's going to be good to be able to charge something like a laptop. You have your air vents here, which you control using this new 8-inch display. Now, let me show you what's new on this really, really awesome 8-inch display. So this 8-inch display transforms the backseat experience in the Model 3 compared to the last one, because here I'm able to customize my air vents with a lot more ease and more precision than I was able to in the previous generation. And then I can go ahead and actually turn on my heated seats from here as well, but I can also control the front passenger seat just here, so I can move that forward if I want more legroom, which is awesome, and that's great for a road trip if you're sitting in the back and you just have a driver and no one sitting in the front seat. Now, I can also control my music or my podcast through here, so that's pretty fun. And you can also go through here and watch Netflix, Disney Plus, YouTube, and Twitch all through here. So you can go here and connect up your Bluetooth headphones to this particular screen, and you're able to just go ahead and put on whatever you want to watch, and it will target the audio to the back if nothing's playing at the front. But of course, if you don't want to play it out loud, yes, you can have your own pair of headphones, not some gross third-party pair that Tesla will make you wear. You can wear your nice, expensive headphones and go ahead and actually watch stuff on this screen without disturbing the rest of the cabin, which I think is awesome. But what's even cooler is that you can actually play games back here. So you can connect a controller or simply use it as a touchscreen and play games here in the back, which is just, yeah, great for kids and just keeping people entertained for long drives. And then you can go here and just, you know, add your Bluetooth devices, use the settings here, or just even adjust your screen brightness if you don't want it to be on its full brightness. And so it looks complicated, but it's really simple in its operation. And I think it's just a really great inclusion for a car at this price point. Normally you'd see stuff like this in far more expensive cars going $100,000, $200,000, even $300,000 cars. But here in a sub $70,000 car, this is the best rear seat entertainment you can get, full stop. And it could be one of the best rear seat entertainments, even up to $100,000. And the same thing is true for the front with the build quality of the doors. These just feel way weightier. Now jumping in, we have these very nice seats. They're extremely comfortable. I've always liked Tesla's seats because they're very nicely sort of cushioned, but they also are ventilated for the first time. So they're not just heated. We have ventilated seats here in the Model 3 as standard. We also have electric adjustment for the driver and passenger. Why is that important? Well, cars around this price point will sometimes skimp out and just offer that electric adjustment for the driver, but the passenger here gets the same treatment. Now you're greeted by a far more minimalist and modern feeling interior. There's no more wood trim. Instead, we have more of that cloth going up here on the dashboard and lots of soft touch materials. The build quality in here feels excellent. It feels really nice. And we have a camera here facing the interior for driver monitoring and all that sort of stuff. And you can also use this for Zoom calls. We still have that frameless looking rear vision mirror, which I think looks quite good. I've always liked the folio style cover for the actual mirrors here, and they have a nice bright light as well. So your passengers and you yourself as a driver will enjoy that. But we do have some extending visors here as well, which is great, and they've also connect magnetically, so it doesn't feel like you're breaking a piece of plastic to put that back. This is all our air vents behind the screen and going across the driver and passenger. Of course, you control it here from the middle screen. And then our glove box here, we can open by going here and pressing glove box, or you can use voice control, but it is very limited. But that's where you're going to put your USB drive for things like your custom sounds and even your Sentry mode, which I'll explain in a second. But what's cool is that when you close this, it's so satisfying because it uses some very strong magnets there. Now we still have some of the best wireless charging pads in the industry. There's two here, so your passenger and you can wirelessly charge your phone, and they're nice and secure and stable and won't ruin your phone because they have some very soft materials here. It's like a felt material. It feels very nice and it's contoured beautifully. We have some big storage here in the middle as well for a 12-volt socket. So if you need to connect something like that, you can, and it's all felt lined, which is great. And I do like the look of the textured sort of trim here, which we're getting here around the center console, here on the steering wheel, and also up on the dashboard. And we have our cup holders here in the middle, and then here we have a pretty big center cubby with more felt, so it's going to be very easy to store things. And you've also got another USB-C charging port there as well. And we have this ambient lighting strip running across the top of the dashboard, down along the side of the doors and into the back, and that is all RGB, so you can customize that lighting to pretty much whatever color you like, which is really cool. And it's actually very easy to see during the day. Here, the biggest elephant in the room is that we don't have any stalks anymore around the steering wheel. Do I think that was necessary? No. Has it been hard to live with? Not really. You go ahead and use the screen as a slider to go forwards and backwards, to go into drive and reverse, and there's a little button to go into neutral and a button to go into drive. Now our indicators are now here on the steering wheel, which are relatively easy, and if you've owned a Ferrari, this is nothing new. And then your window wipers are just a button here, and that will pop up a little prompt here, so you can change the speed quite easily on the screen. You have your voice control, and your right little control wheel here now just really is for cruise control and also autopilot. And you have a little high beam flasher here as well, which is quite fun, just sort of like a push to pass button like you would on a track day. You'd flash your high beams at someone, and then we have a quick button to your reversing camera here. And in terms of the speaker system, if you want the best speaker system in a Model 3, you'll have to get the long range, because the long range gets 17 speakers and dual subs and amps, while this only gets a single sub and a single amp and only 9 speakers. But it's still quite nice to listen to movies movies, podcasts, and music through this center screen here. But let's see what's changed in this center screen. So this screen is pretty much the same type of screen you'll see in a very recent Model 3, but this one's got a slimmer bezel around the outside, and I've just been so impressed with the actual responsiveness of this screen. It's really quick just to react, and you can go through here and check out all the different settings here. Of course, we have our volume controls on the bottom, all our sort of permanent apps along the bottom here, more recent, and then we also have our controls for our heated and cooled seats and our climate controls. And then if you go here in the middle, you can do your front and rear defrosters and also activate your heated steering wheel. Now, of course, you can control the rear screen here, which is pretty useful. So if you want to do that, you can also lock it. So if you don't want people to mess around with it, you can do that too. Now, pretty much what you're all used to is phone looks the same, calendar's the same, messages. Of course, you can do Zoom calls in your car, but theater's pretty fun as well because the speaker system in here is, yeah, sure, it's okay, but what's better is that you have acoustic glass on the front and rear windows now. So it means your speakers will sound better even though they haven't really changed all that much. I honestly think watching movies and TV shows in the Model 3 is a better experience than watching them at home on a laptop, for example. You've also got arcade here, and there's plenty of games to play here now. There's a ton. Of course, you can control all this with a controller, or you can play a game like beach buggy racing with your steering wheel and brake when you're stationary. And of course, you do have Toy Box, and we have this new feature called Boom Box, which is awesome. So you can use the exterior of your car as a actual boom box. So you can play music that you're playing from the inside here to the outside, and you can also activate a megaphone, and you can also change your lock sound and your horn sounds through here through some pre-done sounds, but you can also do a custom sound using a USB port for your lock sound, which is pretty cool. And we still have our light show, our colorizer, our missions mode, and our music making mode, romance mode, all that sort of stuff. So nothing's really changed there. Of course, we still have access to our manual, our browser, Bluetooth, radio, car karaoke or karaoke. We have Tidal, Apple Music, and we have Apple Podcasts, which is very useful because if you want to go and sync up your Apple Podcasts and Apple Music, you can do that easily. So while we don't have CarPlay or Android Auto, at least there's a bit more accessibility here for our iPhone users. The camera system here is super high def, especially when you're going to indicate. The blind spot cameras look really good. But of course, the biggest change here is our gear selector, which is now done here on the right side of the screen. So we slide forwards to go forwards, reverse to go backwards, hit neutral to go into neutral, and go and press P to be in park. Now, what's interesting here is, as you can see, this is this heat map. Now, this is where it becomes a bit inaccurate because this is just using cameras and it thinks the grass I'm parked on is a hard curb. So it's telling me to stop driving. I might hit something even though I'm just driving on grass and there's no obstacles. So that's where it just becomes a little bit useless. Now, by far the most entertaining feature on the Tesla Model 3 Highland update would be the boombox feature. So that sound you heard there is a customizable lock sound. You can also customize your horn sound, so the sound that plays after you honk your horn, and you can also play music to the outside of your car, just like a portable speaker.
So for starters, you can actually project your voice to the outside of this car, which is just insane. Do not forget that this is on, because this would be mega embarrassing if you were talking inside your car and people could hear you through a megaphone on the outside of your car. But what else is cool is that you can actually go ahead this car as a speaker like this. Want to change what your car sounds like when it locks? You can have a traditional sort of car horn, but you can do cool things like this.
Toss a coin to your witcher. Well, I never.
I mean, come on, is that not the most ridiculous feature on any car? Is it necessary? No. But is it entertaining? Absolutely. Especially when all EVs feel like they drive the same. At least you're giving this thing a tiny bit more character. So we get 513 kilometers of WLTP range according to Tesla on their website. But when I fully charge this car, we got around 430 kilometers of real world range. Now 0 to 100 is claimed around 6.1 seconds. That's not too bad. It's plenty quick for a base model rear wheel drive car like this. And especially since it's an electric car, you get all your power at 0 RPMs, meaning it's pretty easy to feel like you're in a faster car compared to a petrol car that can do the same speed. Now, I've just touched the screen forward like this to go into drive, and away we go. Now I'm going to indicate pressing a button on the steering wheel here, and it's as simple as that. Now, I've already done some extensive driving in the previous generation Tesla Model 3, but this is the slightly improved one. And what do I mean by slightly? Well, mechanically, there's not a whole bunch that's changed here. Instead, what they've done is just slightly tweaked everything to make it a better driving experience. Now, that means we're looking at a reduction in vibration in the driver's seat, so it should feel like a smoother car, and we're also getting a 20% reduction in NVH. So that means we are getting a quieter car thanks to that added acoustic glass. I can tell you this is a very quiet car. If someone's trying to speak to you at a normal voice outside the car, you really can't hear them that well. And that just goes for road noise. Everything's muted. It's really nice. And it's been a very pleasant driving experience from a sound point of view. And that means you have a good sound stage to play things like music and listen to podcasts. But I did find that phone calls in this car weren't as high quality. My voice sounded tinny to people. It sounded like it was far away. And maybe that's just my phone, but that was with 2 different calls and multiple different calls with those 2 people. And I still couldn't find a way to improve the call quality in this car. Now, there's been improvements to the suspension on this car, and that means that there's been some adjustments to make sure that it's more compliant over some rough sections of road. And I can tell you right now, this is a great upgrade in the handling department. It just feels so much more plush. It feels like a better built car than the previous generation. The previous generation did feel a bit more affordable in terms of driving experience, but this just feels a lot more resolved. And if they can put this suspension into the Model Y, it would make that car feel just so much better. Now, the steering can be adjusted 3 different ways. I've got it currently in comfort, but you can go into sport. I don't find that strain necessary, to be honest. But what is weird, of course, is that you don't have a heads-up display or anything in front of you. All your information is here in the center screen, as we've learned to expect from Tesla. And it means it's actually not too bad to go ahead and read your information here. I found looking at my speed easy, and you get used to this really quickly. And because this screen's so responsive and bright, it's just a really nice centerpiece to the cabin here. Now I'm on my way to charge this car to tell you what the charging experience is like. The thing with this center screen is that if you are looking to adjust things and you're just learning how to use this system, it can be a bit distracting, but you'll get used to it pretty quick. And it's nice to have hard buttons for crucial things on the steering wheel, or touch capacitor buttons here. Now, to jump into autopilot and auto steer, which is still in beta according to Tesla, you just press this right scroll wheel once, or you can program it to do it twice if you need to. So if you want a more certain press and you want to press it twice just to be sure that you don't press it accidentally all the time, you can do that. Now, auto steer is fantastic. This is basically a form of radar cruise control. You adjust your speed by pulling on this right scroll wheel up here, and it's actually pretty easy to get used to it, and it feels very confidence inspiring. It's not too annoying in terms of binging and bonging to have your attention on the steering wheel, but it will let you know that you have to be holding the steering wheel, and it will remove your access to auto steer if you don't obey the prompts to keep your hands on the steering wheel, which I think is actually a good thing. Now, I've just been driving in heavy, wet rain today. Just a very good test of this car's grip and visibility. And what I love is the visibility out of the Model 3. You've got a low slung bonnet that you can hardly see it. So you have great visibility out front. You have a nice amount of light coming through the top here. You have nice large windows. So the light and sort of just the experience of being inside the Model 3 is actually quite nice. I just find it really easy to relax in this car. It's so quiet now, but overall, it's just a really relaxing car to drive. But having used this auto drive select system, which is in beta, I found it to work most of the time, but when you're trying to park into a really tight parking space, it panics and it will throw you into park all the time. So that's really frustrating, and you have to keep selecting reverse until you basically override the system to tell it that you're okay with reversing and you know where you're going, rather than leaving it up to the car, which is automatically in a panic because the camera system with its heat mapping is just a little bit too generous with this space it needs to operate. I think this thing could fit into tighter car spaces without the camera system and the sensor system freaking out that you're about to hit something. And the only complaint I have with the inside of the Model 3 is it gets very hot in here. With that giant glass roof, even though it's got some tinting on it to try and keep the UV out, it gets very hot very quickly. So if you are going to visit the beach or you're going to visit a hot climate and you need to make sure that your car is cool when you get to it, I would always precondition the interior of my Tesla. But let me quickly talk about charging. Okay, so this is the slower charging Tesla compared to the long range. So it will charge around 170 kilowatts at a fast charger, which is still pretty good, but not the fastest possible charge. If you want the fastest charging Model 3, you'll have to get the long range, which can charge up to 250 kilowatts at a fast charger. And so that means for this car here, you'll add 282 kilometers in around 15 minutes. And so I arrived here with around 58%, and I'm already at 78% by the time it took me to get out and sort of get my camera out and sort of dust the carpets off after being near the grass. And this thing charges really quickly. Now it's going to take another 20 minutes to top up to 100%. So if I need my full range to go on a road trip, it does take a lot longer to go from 80 to 100%, but that 0 to 80% charge is really quick, especially at a supercharger like this. But at least you can sit here and watch Netflix and really make the most of this quiet cabin, especially in a loud car park like this. If I go ahead and close this door, check that out. The sound insulation inside the new Model 3 is excellent, and so that means you can just relax in here. And compared to the old one, you're going to hear less of the outside world, especially if you're in a noisy car park like this, or maybe next to a noisy highway when you go and stop at a charger. And so yes, the Model 3 is still the EV I would recommend to you if you're considering buying an electric car for the first time.